Look at your hands right now. Turn them over, palms up. Now imagine those same hands, tens of thousands of years ago, stained with something you've never seen before, and absolutely no one to ask what it means. For almost every woman who has ever lived, that moment arrived without warning. No mother had explained it. No older sister had pulled her aside. No book, no clinic, no discreet cardboard box under the sink. Just a body that had quietly decided that today was the day. Open most history books and you'll search a long time for a paragraph about it. Not because it didn't happen. It happened to half of humanity for our entire existence. But because the people writing those books either didn't care, found it taboo, or simply had nothing to write about. What did the very first period look like in human history? And why has something so universal left almost no trace? Let's start with biology. Puberty is not simply a calendar ticking over. Evolutionarily, your body is running an audit. Are there enough resources to carry a pregnancy to term? In the 1970s, researcher Rose Frisch proposed something radical. A girl's body has to cross a minimum weight threshold, around 47 kilograms, before menstruation will begin. Later work refined this into the critical fatness hypothesis. Roughly 17% body fat is required for menarche. Age isn't the trigger. Fuel is. Your body reads its own tank before signing off on a baby. If fuel is the gatekeeper, when did puberty arrive in the ancient world? Much later than you assume. In modern well-fed populations, a first period lands around 12 or 13. But among the Kung San of the Kalahari, Nancy Howell's fieldwork found menarche arriving at around 16 or 17. Heavier work, leaner food, the sheer caloric cost of staying alive, all of it pushes that threshold outward. It's a fair inference that girls in the deep past followed a similar curve. Later, never earlier than what we call typical. So hold that image. A 16-year-old deep in prehistory, meeting this for the very first time. Here's the honest truth. We have no idea what went through her head. No diary, no cave painting. Anyone who tells you exactly how she reacted is inventing it. What we can reach for instead is the ethnographic record. Societies closer to us in time, but still outside industrial culture. Anthropologists documented how that first bleed gets handled. Across cultures with no shared ancestry, the pattern is striking. It is not buried. It is marked. Sometimes the girl is set apart. Sometimes there is ritual. Sometimes outright celebration. Almost everywhere it registers as a threshold crossed, not a shameful secret to be managed in silence. Did Stone Age people do the same? We cannot prove it, but it suggests that treating this as unspeakable looks less like a fixed human instinct and more like a recent local invention. Which brings us to the part that drives archaeologists up the wall. Working out how ancient women actually managed the bleeding is close to impossible. The reason is beautifully boring. Whatever they reached for, moss, soft plant fibers, worked hide, was organic. Organic things rot. They don't turn to stone. They don't sit patiently for 40,000 years. They never surface with a neat label attached. So when someone announces exactly which material Stone Age women relied on, understand they aren't pointing at an object behind museum glass. There is no object. What exists are informed guesses. Sensible ones. Moss, softened papyrus, hides scraped by hand, all already in daily circulation for dressing wounds. It's a short, sane leap to assume it served here, too. But sane is not the same as demonstrated. Historians will tell you that plainly. The direct evidence simply did not last. Then writing arrives, and the fog lifts fast. The oldest known medical document on women's health is the Kahun gynecological papyrus, out of Egypt, written around 1800 BCE. It tackles menstrual complaints head-on. A couple of centuries later comes the Ebers papyrus, roughly 1550 BCE, which distinguishes bleeding that arrives on schedule from bleeding that doesn't. The Ebers papyrus even describes a medicated tampon made with ground acacia, meaning that 3,500 years ago, Egyptian medicine treated this as serious enough to fill a scroll. The Greeks and Romans pushed it further. Soranus of Ephesus, writing in the 1st or 2nd century CE, produced 4 volumes and titled them simply Gynecology. Menstruation, anatomy, contraception, childbirth, all methodically worked through. He noted that 3 or 4 days was typical and even advised patients to rest when it was particularly rough. He also rejected Hippocrates' theory that menstruation was essential for purging excess blood. You might be thinking, surely there were actual products. Pads, tampons. Yes, but physical objects are nearly absent from antiquity. Same culprit, cloth rots, fiber rots. Ancient authors occasionally drop a line about absorbent materials, but historians handle those mentions gently. Chase one of those viral "did you know" facts back to its origin, and the ground gives way beneath it. What we do know, Egyptians used softened papyrus. Romans fashioned pads from sheep's wool, the second most absorbent material after cotton. Greeks are rumored to have wrapped lint around small pieces of wood. But here's the uncomfortable truth most accounts gloss over. For most of history, most women simply bled into their clothes. Layers of underskirts and dresses absorbed what they could. When it stained, you washed it. Or you didn't. This brings us to on the rag. In later periods, we know rags were put between the legs, washed, and reused. And even that was a luxury. Most women had nothing but their own clothing. Now bring this back to you. Imagine that 16-year-old girl in the Paleolithic. One morning, you wake up and there's blood on your legs. No pads, no tampons, no hot water bottle. Your mother hands you moss or a scrap of hide. You don't have elastic underwear. You have a loincloth. You tuck the material between your legs and go about your day hoping it stays. If it doesn't, you bleed through. And everyone knows. The first period wasn't just biological. It was a social transaction. It meant you were ready for marriage. Your childhood was officially over. You were now, in your community's eyes, a woman, with all the expectations and restrictions that came with it. And how you managed the blood. Rags if you were lucky. Moss if you lived in the right place. Papyrus if you were Egyptian. Wool if you were Roman. Or nothing at all. Free bleeding, like countless women did for millennia. Does that sound uncomfortable? It should. But here's the strangest part. For most of history, that discomfort wasn't a problem to be solved. It was just the price of being female. Which leaves one last fact, and it should rearrange your sense of time. The convenient things on a supermarket shelf right now are shockingly new. The first commercial pad, Lister's towels, appeared in 1896. It failed because Victorian society found it too disgraceful to even advertise. What changed things was a war. Nurses in World War I noticed surplus cellulose wound dressings soaked up blood far better than fabric, and an entire industry was kick-started by accident. The modern tampon wasn't patented until 1931 by Earl Haas. He sold the rights to Gertrude Tendrich, who founded Tampax, and they hit U.S. shelves in 1936. Sit with that. Our species has been menstruating for a few 100,000 years. The products we treat as background furniture are barely a century old. That answers the question we started with. This left almost no trace, not because it mattered little, but because the materials perished and the culture fell quiet. And of those two, the quiet is by far the newer thing. For nearly the whole run of our history, women solved this themselves, one generation passing it to the next, using whatever the world offered. No instructions, nothing to buy. For the overwhelming majority of that time, a silence so complete it barely left a rumor behind. So the next time you walk past that aisle without registering it, think about what it replaced. Nothing. Think about the girl at the river and the tens of thousands of girls behind her and after her, meeting that morning with no explanation and no equipment and getting on with the day regardless. That is one of the steadiest threads through everything our species has ever done. And almost nobody ever bothered to write it down.